Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new video and welcome to the penultimate race of our F124 Haas Driver Career Mode. Yes, we're back this weekend here for the final sprint of the year. We're back in the sail for the Qatar Grand Prix. Of course, if you missed out on the video that went live a few days ago from Vegas, I would highly recommend going back and checking it out. It was one of, if not the weirdest race I've ever had inside F124. Charles Leclerc narrowly lost out on victory to ourselves come the checkered flag, despite the fact that with front wing damage, he was a second a lap faster than anybody else last weekend. We came through though for the dub, and that means with just 2 rounds to go, there are just 2 points in it between ourselves and Oscar Piastri. George Russell still currently mathematically has a shot at the World Championship, 41 points back at this stage of the season. But yeah, he basically needs a miracle this weekend if he wants to drag the title fight out to our season finale in Abu Dhabi. Of course, if you're new, please do make sure you leave a like, get yourself subscribed to the channel. This is also a big weekend for Haas because we could wrap up the Constructors' Championship as well, as long as we lose less than like 17 points, I think, to McLaren here. So we just want to try and have a good weekend between ourselves and Pierre. Make sure we tick that box off so we've only got the driver's title to focus on when we make it to Abu Dhabi. Of course, as well, if you want to help support us just a little bit more, you can click that join button down below for just £1 a month. You get early access to all of the videos, as well as a few other little perks as well. And of course, with F125 content not too far away now, you'll be able to enjoy all those perks into the new game. But yeah, 2 races, 2 points in it. We really could end up in a title fight just as close as we did last season. But yeah, let's head then here to Qatar. I love this venue.
Today is all about the rhythm, all about the flow, because it's qualifying in Qatar. We're under the floodlights for a high-speed test that will set the grid for tomorrow. Wherever you are in the world, you're very welcome.
Well, I'll be honest, for the first time ever here in Qatar, I've really struggled to find the balance with the car this weekend. It's just about how much you can get away with, how much you want to lean on the rear end of the vehicle, and well, yeah, so far I just don't quite feel like I found that balance around this circuit. But as we head into qualifying, the temperature drops, the car does become a little bit more forgiving, so hopefully we can try and get a good time on the board. Of course, Oscar Piastri, he's been fantastic over 1 lap pace throughout the entirety of this campaign. I don't expect that to change at all this weekend. I'm recording this video, a little fun fact for you, just after the Bahrain Grand Prix, which Oscar absolutely dominated. Of course, this video probably won't be going live for about a month afterwards. Just again, the nature of how I've been trying to get ahead on videos for the channel in recent weeks and months. But yeah, let's just see though, can we try and cement a pole position here? We've had quite a few of them actually inside this game. It's not the AI's strongest track for 1 lap pace. I think you could certainly argue there, as I think Charles Leclerc currently running up in P2 then as we navigate our way in through this final sector, completely flat out through all of these corners in qualifying there, including the last flick back to the left-hand side. 1 more corner to go, as long as we don't do anything stupid. This should be pole position then as we get the power down on the run back towards the start-finish line. I think that is going to be a dominant pole position, a 1:19.2. Well, there we go, pole by half a second here. That might be the biggest qualifying margin we've seen all year. Behind us, everybody else still fairly bunched up. Russell will line up alongside me on the front row, just ahead of Leclerc and Fernando Alonso. Both Aston Martins inside the top 5. Oscar Piastri, though, a disappointing effort for the sprint race here, slower than his teammate Enzo Fittipaldi, but they're both ahead of our teammate here, so again, McLaren have an opportunity to keep the Constructors' fight going. Well, lining up on pole position then, ready for the 10 laps here of Saturday night's sprint race. Going to be a very, very fast-paced one, and you know what, we're going to gamble it. We're going to try a set of these soft compound tyres ready for this one, so maybe it's a gamble that might not kind of work for us. But I'm kind of feeling that if we can keep an extra couple of sets of mediums ready for the race, that could be rather useful as well here. So ignore the pit stop. We're not going to be making that as we make our way through this one then. But yeah, I just want to get on with it. We need to try and build up a little bit of a buffer ahead of Oscar Piastri this weekend if we can. 5 red lights here on the grid. And it's going to be lights out, and away we go then off to a fairly wheel spinny getaway. Be Alonso actually gets the best run down towards turn 1, straight down the middle from P3 on the grid there, as we will try and hook it up the long way around the outside. Fernando Alonso will say absolutely not though, and slam the door shut through turn 2 as Russell just behind us will try. I think there was a little bit of contact actually between myself and George off those first couple of corners. Oh, Alonso definitely not with the same amount of grip on those mediums as we have on our soft compound tyres. We'll just show the nose in towards the next corner. But again, the Spaniard's pretty unflappable, isn't he? Especially, you know, you're not going to be able to pull kind of the cheap tricks on a man with over 400 Grand Prix starts in the world of Formula 1 there. But you can see Russell and Porsche, though, following not too far behind. Yeah, quite surprised this weekend that this venue really does seem to be suiting Aston Martin. At least over 1 lap pace then, as we try and close in towards the S's there. We'll quite be able to have a look down the inside through the first part. That pretty much means you have to follow line of stern through the rest of it there, as Gasly seems to be struggling a little bit further back, unable to keep up with both of the Ferrari cars there, as again we'll just try and force Alonso defensive in towards that final corner. Will Russell be able to get a run at the final turn then, as we have just about survived lap 1. Come on. Oh, Alonso, he shows the door. We will just try and brake slightly later in towards turn 1, and I got no idea why the Spaniard gave that up. He could have easily covered the inside line, but I think he wanted to move back to the apex, and then kind of got a bit spooked. But it looks like Oscar Piastri then has found his way around Lando and Charles as well, so now he's going to go in hot pursuit of your top 5 cars there. Big breakaway at the moment. I mean, yeah, we're still able to take all of these corners completely flat. The tyre wear is definitely not enjoying it there. 40% on that left-hand side tyre, and I'm already getting a little bit nervous that maybe we're going to puncture in this race. As there we go. Oh, it's not even Leclerc, it's the other Mercedes. I think Hamilton might be our first retirement of the afternoon then. So we always talk about Mercedes' bad luck here inside this game. Hamilton out of the sprint as Alonso, his old 2070 mate, will suddenly take the lead. Well, the problem I've got at the moment is, yes, the DRS is very powerful, but of course the dirty air is even worse as you try and make your way through the corners. There, of course, can't do anything down to the final turn. Not that I'd be able to anyway, but I actually think I want to be ahead of Fernando Alonso here, as we've got a little bit of a swapper on out of that final corner. Can we get the power down back in towards turn 1 to the inside of Fernando will go. There's Lando Norris now, new fastest lap of the day. Fernando tries to go late on the brakes there, hook it up around the outside, but back into prime position. 2 laps to go then here, and although this might not be looking great for us at the moment, at least we've learned that we definitely don't want to use the soft compound tyre as we head into the race. You just cannot manage the temperature in them. But at least we know the medium should be okay then, as here comes Alonso once again. This time around having a look to the inside there, and I just didn't know if he was going to commit or not. We'll try and go the long way around, make sure we give him the room. As we make our way in towards turn 2, we've got to just try and barrel him out as best as we can. Alonso, though, will not be dissuaded. To the inside, wheel to wheel. Up in towards turn 3 and turn 4 there. Can we find the grip the long way around? We're able to brake later there, but our kind of angle of attack is certainly compromised. We're still side by side as we make our way in towards the hairpin. Really difficult to get the power down on the inside line there, as Alonso again will get the run off the corner there, but we'll try and hook it up the long way around. Again, notice throughout none of that have we banged wheels there. 2 drivers giving each other racing respect, but Alonso will back out of it this time round and potentially set himself up for a final lap attack here, as we'll try and get the run up in towards the final few corners of lap 9 there. Alonso thought about it. Whether that was just a film of mirrors, whether that was just play games, I don't really know at this stage, but it's allowed Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris into the fight as well then, as us two just bunching each other up here. But the big question remains, will this tyre hang on with 1 more lap to go then of the sprint race here? It is do or die. This could have championship ramifications by the time we get out to Abu Dhabi next weekend, as here comes Alonso again. Didn't quite defend early enough, so let's try and force him to the inside there. Can we go late on the brakes around the outside of the Spaniard? See, bangs wheels again. This time around, the gloves are off as we will try and return the favour on Alonso. Kind of felt he had to jump out the way on the exit of the corner. A carbon copy now of the last lap as we go wheel to wheel up in towards turn 4 and turn 5. But Fernando Alonso that time around gets the power down. We've got to try and have a look down the inside. We've got to try and hang there with him as we lock up that already very, very worn out tyre at the moment as we make our way up towards the next hairpin. Alonso just about gets the car fully in front there, and we'll have to try and get the power down on the exit. I mean, Aston Martin could be on for a 1-2 in this sprint race as Théo Pourchaire now moves up into P3. But as we launch the car over the curbing, trying to take all the possible risk we can on this last lap. Can we get a run up in towards the final few corners? No, we can. You just see there, almost pushing him along. Had to just nudge the brake to make sure that we didn't damage the front wing in towards those final few corners. We've got 2 more corners to go, and look at the run we've got hanging it. To the inside of Alonso will go. Oh, he gives us a big old squeeze. He jumps out of the way, but he might just get the power down. It's going to be a drag race back to the line. Who's going to take it? Fernando. Well, there we go then. Fernando Alonso takes sprint race victory here by just 24 thousandths of a second. That has got to be one of the closest finishes I've had inside this game there. Théo Pourchaire in the second Aston Martin, 2/10 off the win, will only come through for P3, just ahead of Russell. Fittipaldi beats out Oscar Piastri, so I don't know whether there'll be questions raised down at Ferrari, because every point counts at this stage of the campaign. Lando Norris in 7th, Charles Leclerc in 8th, and Pierre Gasly down in P9, just ahead of Logan Sargent. That now means, with the main event ahead of us, we've got a 6-point lead over Oscar. Russell, he needs to win this, and he needs to hope that I come, I think, 7th or lower to keep his championship hopes alive. Constructors-wise, Haas, again, we've got one hand on the trophy. We need to make sure that McLaren don't outscore us by 14 points here. Basically, the way this is going to work is either McLaren and George have a chance going into Abu Dhabi, or it is all basically going to be over for the pair of them. Well, to hopefully try and combat some of the tyre wear that we suffered in the sprint race, we have opted just to up the pressures just a little bit more as we head into this main event. I just want to give myself options as we make our way through the rest of the event here. But apart from that, the setup remaining unchanged on this Haas car. So let's just try and see if we can claim another pole position there. A little bit wide through turn 1. And again, not quite meeting the apex through turn 2. But it is all about the hookup on the exit of the corner, getting that power down and able just to roll off with some speed. Of course, all about fluid motion as well. This circuit, you know, obviously based around motorbikes and things like that. So a lot of the corners are long and flowing. You know, you want to just turn in once, get on the brakes once, get on the throttle once around this lap. Smoothness is absolutely everything there, and that is not smooth as we get a bit of a wobble on out of that hairpin. So Russell now fastest on the board at the moment as we try and carry the speed off the next corner up in towards this final sector of the lap. You see that McLaren looking very, very racy at the moment. Russell has done it before here, but it is even more do or die for him at the moment here as in towards the final few corners we will go. Again, just try and leave the car completely flat out through that penultimate turn. Will it be Russell? Will it be ourselves able to claim pole position here as we try and get the power down out of the final turn? I think it is going to be Russell. No, it is not. We are going to snatch it on the run to the line. Well, there we go. The sprint race was pretty close there. 24 thousandths of a second. The real qualifying session, a bigger gap. 34 thousandths of a second. Oscar Piastri will line up in P3. They're ahead of Alonso and Pourchaire once again. So Aston Martin really are looking to be a thorn in a lot of people's side right now. But the top 3 in the World Championship, your top 3 ready on the grid? Let's do this thing.
3.3 miles, 16 turns with a single DRS zone at the exit of turn 16. It is a fast and flowing track with plenty of overtaking expected through the DRS zone down into turn 1. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Firestarter lines up on pole position, and starting next to them is George Russell. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Oscar Piastri, Fernando Alonso, Théo Pourchaire, Norris, Leclerc, Fittipaldi, Gasly, Sargent, Perez, Ocon, Tsunoda, Ricciardo, Stroll, Behrman, Vesti, Joe, Iwasa, and Lewis Hamilton rounds off the grid. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head down trackside for today's race.
Here we are then, on the grid for the penultimate time ever inside F124, at least in this series. If you guys are interested, my Salvaging Sauber career mode has still got a few episodes left over on Mat 2 and 2 gameplay, but Hamilton and Iwasa both with grid penalties here, but luckily, yeah, none of the championship protagonists are going to get dogged by penalties, at least this weekend, so it is just going to be a straight up fight between all three of us here. I'm going to put a couple of spare laps of fuel in the car. We did seem to burn through a lot of it throughout the sprint race. But yeah, Russell and Piastri right alongside me. The pressure is going to be real. 2 races left of this World Championship. It is anybody's still to claim. 5 red lights. And it's going to be lights out. And away we go. They're getting off to a better start than we did yesterday. But again, Russell on our inside there looks to do a slightly better job in towards turn 1. And Oscar Piastri will try and follow him through in towards that first corner. A little bit late on the brakes there as well. Russell, I think, wanted to slam us out. I thought he was going to actually get the run through turn 1 and turn 2 there. And again, we'll try and get around the outside through turn 3. We did this quite a lot with Fernando Alonso yesterday, but with heavy fuel on board the car, I don't expect it to last as long this time around there, as Oscar Piastri now has a bit of a dive to the inside as well. But of course, everybody else has got a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of know-how about how the medium tyres will feel after the sprint race. I'm completely in the dark as we head into the main event here, but the goal is going to be take these mediums sort of 13, 14 laps and then try and take a set of the hard compound tyre to the end of the GP. The team didn't actually believe a 2-stop was much slower around this venue, so it'll be interesting to see whether that works out. But I think the big goal tonight is if we can beat Oscar and head to Abu Dhabi with a 7-point margin at the top of the table. Of course, it will mean whatever he does, we just have to finish directly behind him in that season finale. Of course, the gap's 6 as we head into this one, but if it was to finish like this, that gap would be 9 points, which would be fantastic. Despite Russell winning, he would be out of World Championship contention there. Let's see what we can do back in towards turn 1. Can we get just a little bit closer to McLaren, or we'll go defensive late on? Beautifully timed to cover off the kind of attempted move. Well, the one thing I really, really hate when you get to this late stage of a season, and the World Championship fight is still on, is just knowing there's an element here of RNG inside the game that could decide it for us. Of course, if we or Oscar Piastri has a mechanical failure, that could be World Championship done and dusted. Of course, fun fact, it was actually on my very last race on F123 when we had a mechanical failure whilst trying to battle Lando Norris for the world title, and that ultimately cost us any chance to fight for it when all was said and done. And of course, obviously, if you guys watched the My Team career mode we did on F124 as well, you might remember, yeah, we had about 4 mechanical failures in the last 6 Grand Prix, but we built up such a lead at the top of the World Championship, it made no difference. Oscar Piastri, though, following me past George Russell down at turn 1, but those two having a real squabble. Whilst I'm waffling on, we've now got a 1.5 second lead. And there we go. Russell, Oscar Piastri, and I think we're going to see, yep, Pierre Gasly in as well. So Leclerc now out in P2, just ahead of Norris and Fittipaldi here. But of course, yeah, the great thing is with Pierre pitting this lap, last lap even, we can afford to box this lap then in the Grand Prix. Only thing I'm looking at is we're about to complete that objective, so I might just stay out and finish that. But it'll depend on how quickly those guys behind are closing in. But I think we're going to dive in the end of this lap then, because it appears once again we've lost Mark inside this game. Nah, we can't do anything. Mark has decided to check out for the rest of the evening here. Clearly he feels we've got such a dominant lead that we don't need him alongside us for the rest of the afternoon, as into the pit lane we'll go. No risk taken at all. I will happily throw away a second or two there to make sure that we don't lose and, get a penalty and things like that. But 14 laps remaining then, as Russell and Oscar Piastri just have not been able to kind of get near us throughout a lot of this race so far. No idea why the team didn't want the car to go there. That was a little bit weird. Just held us a bit longer than I was hoping for there. But Russell making his way out of the final corner then as he crosses over the start-finish line. We're going to just try to avoid wheel spin on the cold tyres as we make our way back out into the circuit. Definitely has taken a bit of time out of us here. That gap now under 2 seconds. But yeah, we just still want to try and get temperature in these tyres. You can just see on this out lap, really struggling to do so. But I think Russell is making sure he gives it everything on this lap to try and get inside that DRS range of myself, and I think he's going to do so Really struggling to get these tyres up to temperature on this outlap. Of course, you know, we are in the desert, but see, last season Qatar hosted in December, so track temp wasn't anywhere near as ridiculous as it was back in 2023. But suddenly, yeah, that slightly longer first stint. Whoa, and just goes to show how much we're struggling with those tyres. They're lucky not to kind of crash out of the Grand Prix there. Kept it out of the barrier, but we'll lose the lead. We'll almost lose the podium place there. Look at that, Lando Norris down the inside. Where did he come from down at turn 1? I just knew he was going to squeeze me out there, so he'll go through. Charles Leclerc might go through as well then, but it wouldn't be a Mat 2-2 race without a Mat 2-2 bottle. Come on, we need to try and push on. Right, come on then, let's see if Leclerc can get a run on Lando Norris then. We have really struggled with these hard compound tyres there, as here goes Leclerc to the outside of Lando Norris, back towards turn 1. There's a battle for the lead going on as well between Oscar Piastri and George Russell, so this is really important for us. We need to look after our tyres whilst these guys are all battling. We've got the freshest rubber in the entire field here. As look at this, Leclerc and Norris, they are putting on a show right now. Wheel to wheel up into towards turn 4. Can we get involved with? There's just no way in. So a little bit of wheel bagging with my former rival in Charles. Just so I get past him in towards the hairpin there. But of course, so much history between us two on this game. I really did not want it to end up badly for us there. We've not really been in the DRS of anybody else pretty much throughout the entirety of this weekend. It has been a really, really odd one here in Qatar, but we have spent most of the racing laps in P1 there as well, just nudging that bump through the final corner. But surely Lando is going to be a sitting duck back in towards turn 1. Russell needs him to hold us up, but he's unable to there, and Oscar Piastri reclaiming the lead of the Grand Prix as well. Does really look like, unless we have, you know, a mechanical failure or a big incident between now and the end of the afternoon, Russell with 10 laps to go here might be kissing goodbye his hopes at a first world title yet again. But I think Oscar Piastri has just been waiting in the wings over the last couple of laps, charging up his battery so we can try and line up a move on George Russell, but of course without any information from the team. We are a little bit lost at this stage of the afternoon about what is going on with all of our rivals here, as you just see again, almost pushing Oscar through that final corner. Will he be able to get the run on Russell though this time round? I'm going to try and be the new Oscar Piastri in this scenario. Let the others swabble and see what happens there. As to the inside of Russell, he'll go in towards turn 1. Who will come out on top in this scenario yet again? Russell, hangs it around the outside there. Very, very brave as again. Just see, these hard tyres are really odd. They kind of got grip, they've got grip, and then they absolutely slip off there. There's just nothing you can do. Somehow, again, able to catch the slide, but again, it leaves us on the back foot. Well, with Oscar's little error, though, that might give George Russell the window he needs to try and pull away. 5 laps to go then. The gap now about 1.2 seconds here, as is Oscar Piastri maybe just starting to struggle. Has spent a lot of this race in the dirty air of his rivals, and now we're going to try and look to the outside, back in towards turn 1. So we'll get around the outside of Oscar then, and we will try and get back in the range of George, which we will. So Oscar, very strategic there, didn't bother fighting it. He knows with the slingshot that we can get us both back in the range. Well, I think Oscar might have issues here late on in the day. This could be really defining, but he's completely fallen back into the clutches of Lando Norris here. So I think, yeah, Oscar Piastri is just starting to struggle. Maybe there was a bit of front wing damage between him battling with George Russell, but I don't think I saw anything. As down the inside and finally back into the lead of this Grand Prix. Oscar, he has definitely got problems in that Ferrari. Lando Norris might be able to move past him, and we have a huge opportunity to build up a little buffer. Of course, if we can win this race, pick up the full 26 points, we will have a healthy little margin as we head to Abu Dhabi. Well, I'm trying to do the calculations in my head, but I'm pretty certain now, with just it being a 2-horse race between myself and George Russell, if we win, I believe we have wrapped up the Constructors' Championship. If Russell wins, I believe McLaren will drag that fight out to Abu Dhabi, because Lando Norris is running in P3 here. So Russell, yeah, even if he gets the jump on me, he will not stay in the World Drivers' Championship fight. And admittedly, even then, McLaren would still need a miracle as we head into Abu Dhabi as well. They basically need a 1-2, with Haas not scoring any points here. But Russell to the inside, back in towards turn 1 there. Again, another decisive move, and again, we just get a little snap of oversteer there. Somehow, once again, we're able to just like keep the car out of the barriers, but you just seem to get over that threshold, and the grip absolutely falls away there. We destroyed one of the braking markers for turn 2 there, but that's a small price to pay at this stage of the afternoon. And Russell, he obviously took that victory from us a couple of years ago here. He's not going to do the same tonight, is he, again? Here in Qatar, we might well have already won our last race inside this series last weekend in Vegas. You should always celebrate every victory like it's your last in Formula 1, because you never know. There will always be your last win, and you just never quite know when that is going to happen. But yeah, Russell, as he winds his way in towards those final few corners here, purple through the middle sector, so clearly there is still some grip on these hard compound tyres there. Oscar Piastri, he could end up finishing P5 in this race, as he might almost be about to lose the DRS to Lando Norris as well then. One more lap to go, and we saw a brilliant battle for sprint race victory yesterday. We were the bridesmaid there against Fernando Alonso. Will it be the same tonight as we try and close in on George in towards turn 1? The McLaren man will swing defensive, that's okay. We'll try the outside line there. A little bit later on the brakes for George though. But can we get the power down through turn 2? Not quite able to put alongside there. So we'll try and get the power again through turn 3. And up the hill in towards turn 4. To the inside. No. Definitely not a corner where you can really look for moves. Unless you're fully alongside the car in front. You can see Russell, he doesn't want to take any risk through those corners. He just wants to keep that car planted, do the job he needs to, and trying not to make a mistake here. We are desperately doing everything we can to try and force a mistake out of the McLaren. 2 absolutely crazy finishes here in Qatar there, as to the inside. Oh, thought about it, but again, just not got the confidence on the brakes there. Russell later, and we'll swoop around the outside. Will we potentially go wheel to wheel in towards the final few corners? Russell's hit us. Just completely moved across me there. And so lucky that we're not out of the Grand Prix. A tiny bit of damage on the front wing there, but I thought he would probably give us room. Russell absolutely will not. He will hang on. A controversial end, but it keeps McLaren, I believe, in the constructors. P2 in both the sprint and the race. That is heartbreaking.
The British driver will look up and see the checkered flag first. George Russell takes the checkered flag.
Well, they showed true grit out there today, not to be outdone by the rough circumstances. Many points that came their way today. A job well done, not the easiest of days, but they walk away with a race victory.
Our winning drivers are on their way to the podium right now. It's been a fantastic race for McLaren, that's for sure, and no doubt they'll be celebrating tonight.
Well, you can't deny how committed George Russell is late on in the day there. Admittedly, yeah, we were a bit optimistic thinking he'd give us some room, but quite surprised that he slammed the door as aggressively as he did. And, well, we lost both races by a combined 5.5 tenths this weekend. That is pretty disappointing there. An all British 1-2-3 though, as we ended up in a McLaren sandwich. Oscar Piastri in 4th ahead of Leclerc, Perez ahead of Fittipaldi, with Gasly, Pourchaire and Logan Sargent rounding out your top 10 in the main event. You can see it was just Ocon and Alonso that failed to see the checkered flag, but what does that do to our championship standings? Well, like I said, George Russell is out of it. All we need in Abu Dhabi is a podium. Doesn't matter where Oscar Piastri finishes, we've got a 13-point buffer as we head into the finale. We just need a podium, and there is nothing he can do about it. Russell, 37 back. It has been a valiant effort all year, but unfortunately not quite enough to keep himself in the fight there. Still ahead of Leclerc and Pierre Gasly. Lando Norris now just 4 points back behind our teammate, just ahead of Alonso and Enzo Fittipaldi as well, with Hamilton still ahead of Porsche. I would love to see scrape 100 points by the end of the year. Both Red Bulls, both VCARBs still just a little bit further behind, ahead of both Alpines as well. Constructors-wise, though, 41 the gap. So McLaren do technically head to Abu Dhabi with a shot at that championship. But I'm pretty certain now, mathematically, Haas have either won the Constructors or the Drivers' Championship, because, of course, Oscar Piastri needs to outscore us by a certain amount of points as well. So McLaren, yeah, would need a 1-2 in that final race of the season as well there. Ferrari still in P3 ahead of Mercedes and Aston Martin. Red Bull in a distant 6th place, so ahead of VCARB, Alpine and Williams. Thank you all so much for watching, though. One final race on this game, both World Championships we are within grasping distance of. Let's head to Abu Dhabi and let's come back a World Champion.